Yes. Yes. So you can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. Super. Okay. Today we'll be starting a fresh topic. So the first half of the training, like for past 30 classes, we have been going through the basics of core Java. We went through the web applications and database and servlets, JDBC connection. We developed the web application, and then yes. So until then, we finished. We finished one complete cycle of web application. So in the second half, uh, we will be starting. We will start with Hibernate. So we will start with. So now the first half, you have an idea of how a web application works because we have finished one end-to-end cycle. We brought the data and we displayed in the page, JSP page, and we did a little bit of beautification to the page using styles. Now we will see why Hibernate came. Any new technologies or anything which is getting introduced will definitely have a advantage over the previous thing, or there might be some drawbacks which has to be overcome. That is why some other technologies are being introduced. So we will see why. We will see the story behind the Hibernate, and from there, little by little, we'll start configuring it, and we will convert the same application, whatever we did earlier using servlets. Then we migrated to Spring. Then we migrated to Spring Boot, the same application. Now we will migrate with the Spring Boot and the backend, I mean the middle layer as Hibernate. So that is the goal for the next 1 week to 10 days. So that's the goal. After that, we will go over the next set of topics. Okay, so to start with, the story starts on in the previous application, like the traditional application, whatever we developed, which I am displaying now. What we have is my screen visible clearly?
Yeah, I can see Rajesh.
You can see it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we saw, this is what we wrote earlier. We wrote a get connection method, which will be getting the connection. We have that method at the bottom. So the connection we get using class.coordinate step 1. This is step 2, and okay, these are the things. And then we have some queries. We write the queries. We use prepared statement or statement. We set the values and we get a result, and then we iterate. Now the questions which came to the Java developers those days were, I am a Java developer. Why should I learn query? I'm not working in database. Why should I learn another language? Why should I be an expert in database? So that was a starting point which brought the ORM into place. ORM is called Object Relational Mapping. Object Relational Mapping. So Hibernate is an ORM. We have IBATIS. We have many other ORM frameworks in the market. So ORM framework. Once we study what is ORM, how it is used, then you will understand different ORMs in the market. Okay, so these are the cast top links. Spring, even Spring has a ORM. We have Hibernate, and we have many more. How many ORM tools are there? Just it. Yeah, IBATIS, MyBATIS, top link. You should have an idea of different players in the market. ORM tool, Hibernate, IBATIS. This is another tool which is for .NET, Java, Ruby on Rails. And the top link, it's an ORM for Java developers. And you can search, many more are there. So So what is an ORM? So the question which triggered for the invention or going into the hibernate or ORM technologies where why should I start reading another technology when I am a Java developer? My goal is only to read or to program in Java. Why should I be reading another database queries, store procedures? There's a lot of things which it's only a DB guy like DBA, also all those like DB specialists alone will be knowing. That was a scenario which came there. Of course, now the scenario is changed. Now we call it as full stack, where a single person has to do everything. That is how initially it was. Now only the term is given, the fancy stuffs are given, but initially when I started, we were responsible for everything. We were not split as a UI person or a DB administrator or a server administrator. The developer or the lead were managing the production. They will have production support also. So it was not a split term where after that, like after 2005-6, it all started to split slowly, and the people named as a separate team for DB, separate team only for UI, separate for UX alone. UI is different, UX is different, user interface, user experience. So separate for UX, separate for build alone, and separate for production movement, and separate for different teams came. But of course, everything will have a downfall. I mean, not a downfall. Everything will have a downside to it. The downside is costing. When I increase like 2% to 5 to 6%, I have to pay salary for 5 to 6. So now again the market trend is changing, and we call them as full stack developer, where you need to know end to end. So that's all it started, but it is again going back to the same 20 years back. So the question which triggered was, why should I learn another DB? So what the people, the developers that time came in with the concept as, I'll draw a small diagram for understanding. As usual, if I minimize this, yeah, I have it. Okay, we can make it a bit bigger. So the front end is here, which is HTML, JSP, jQuery, Angular. Of course, Angular came now. This can be ASPX, PHP, or any other UI framework or file. Mostly it will be in HTML. So this is a UI. Next, we have the middle layer, which is having the business logic, Java. This can be Java, PHP, ASP.NET, which is C#, Python, etc. Any other middle layer, this was here. Then we had the database layer. So this is what we developed in the past, the first half of the session. We developed the flow will start from UI. We used to hit the middle layer, and then it goes from the middle layer to the database layer. It fetches the data, comes back here, and it goes from here to here. So this is what we saw. So 15 years back, the question in the mind was, why should we have a, here this involves writing queries to the database. Why should I be bothered, or why should I even learn something? So what happened? This layer got separated as two different layers. This layer, one more layer was introduced, and this was called as ORM layer. So what
I mean, Rajesh, the business logic layer has been divided into two parts.
Correct. Okay. Exactly. So the business logic layer is divided into two parts. The end layer of the business logic layer, what it is? DAO. Correct. From the controller, it goes to service. From the service, it goes to DAO. In the DAO, we hit the table and we get the values.
Okay.
The DAO layer, after the DAO layer, the DO layer is merged and the DO layer is separated as ORM layer. This is the ORM layer used to take care of all the interaction to help the ORM layer uh, to help the actual DO layer will be here. I'll draw something. So this is the ORM layer. We'll have this layer as it is. Here we will have three layers: the service layer, the controller layer, the service layer, and the DO layer. It will be like this. So the DO layer will be spread between these two. The ORM layer will help the DO layer to query. So the query part was taken care by this layer. So the Java developers were not forced to learn queries, but they had to know limited knowledge on the database, because you that is why even in the college, if you see, we have a workshop session where we used to. I'm not sure about like all colleges across, but mostly wherever I see, we have workshop where we used to weld, we used to file using iron, we used to do carpentry work, and we used to do electrician work. We used to do wiring, all those things in the workshop in engineering. That doesn't mean like we'll be doing that work, but the main reason is you should understand every aspect of it, so that when you get a work done from someone else, they should not give you a wrong estimation. That is the purpose of giving all these training. So when someone comes and tells you like this welding is going to take like 2 days of work, you will tell this will take just 5 minutes. I've done it in my college. I know what welding is. So please finish it and give me. So that is why they give this training. Same way, you cannot totally isolate database. You should know some concept about the database. Basic things you should definitely know. Otherwise, you'll be lost totally. So, but you need not know in depth. So that helped the Java developers to focus more on their business logic. But the the other side is many of the Java developers lost touch with the database, and they forgot what queries were. That's what I see from the past like 15 years from my service. I see that many of them don't know other than the basic of database, which is a very pathetic situation. But it came for a different purpose, but people started using it differently. So the queries were all taken care by the Hibernate. The queries, tuning of queries, that is very important thing. What is tuning of queries? Suppose we have like we have to write a query of 8 to 9 tables. We wrote a query of 3 tables. Suppose we have to write a query of 8 to 9 tables, then the query has to be tuned perfectly so that the result comes out in the shortest duration. That is called query tuning. That is itself is a different thing. We have explained plan. There are like few techniques. So we have to take the query. We have to write the explain plan of the query. I'll see if I have something here. Do I have an explain? Power tool, window tools, explain plan, others, table, database. No, this UI I don't see it. One second, let me see if there is something here. Format, database, schema, schedule, new query builder, new design. I'll see here. So explain plan is a beautiful picture of the query. We will generate a diagram of how the query will be executed. Maybe from internet I'll try. These are the things you should know, because when there is some, you are in a real world project, and suppose some query is taking up time, some page is taking long time to load, or some query is taking long time to finish, you should immediately tell, can you take up the explain plan of this query? So how, I don't see a diagram. There will be a beautiful diagram which will tell like something like this. First, I'm executing the select statement. Then I'm doing this. It is taking this much row, it may this much memory. The cost is this much, and then this table has full. There will be a big like this. There will be a big list. Okay, if it is having full access, so these are things which are dangerous. We should not access the table completely. When you go depth into database, you will know. So these are the things which will help. So we used to do this manually. We used, now once the Hibernate came, many of them, other than the DBA guys who are purely into DB, they know these things. But other persons, they don't get a chance even to work on this. But when we were there, we used to do explain plan of all the queries because we wrote queries. Okay, that is something which you can take a note of it. So what happens? The Hibernate generates a beautiful, perfect query, tuned query, fine-tuned query. Hibernate will generate. So what happens? ORM layer is a layer which bridges the gap between the database and the Java layer. So the Java developers need not know completely about the table, or how do I query it, whether my query is right or not. All those things they need not know it. All they need to know is the basic things like what is the table name, column names, that's all. And then they can write the queries in Java terms, in objects, as objects. That is why it is called object relational mapping. Java guys will develop the query as object. We will see how it is. Hibernate will convert the object into the actual queries. That is the principle or the base of the any ORM framework. We don't query to database. We query to objects, and that will be converted as, that will be hit to the database. One example is, we have a user table. We have been seeing these table structures in our earlier classes. We have a user table. Suppose I need to fetch the users. What I have to do, select star from P001 user. This is what we gave. This is the query we generated. But as a Java developer, I need not know this query at all. What I need to know, I need to know that as a Java developer, what I need to know a Pojo. Pojo is plain old Java object. Initially, in the second class, I introduced the term. Pojo is a representation or a replica of database. We have used this in the previous like couple of classes where we have brought the data, fetched the data, and converted into the list, address list, and we displayed in the page. So let us say I create a table, I create a Pojo here like this. Public class, this one, and private, and I'll write a source generate getters and setters. This is a Pojo which we used to do regularly. Now this is a terminology which the Java developer has to do once. They have to tell this class is a representation of P001 user class. Here, this name should be the database table name. This is the first thing they have to know. An entity means this is a entity or an object of database. This is every row. This class is a row in a database. That is the second thing. And of course, we have different syntaxes. We need not go into the syntax now. You will get all the syntax in the documentation. That's what I keep on telling from day one. For syntaxes, you have the documentation. I'm not going to tell anything greater than the documentation. You can go through the document, you get excellent excellent syntaxes for these, but the concepts alone I'll explain. So now the Java developer just needs to know that there is a class which the equivalent table is user table, and there is a column user ID, and it is a primary key column. The column name is user underscore ID, that is from the database. I have user name. So what he will do, he will create one more private variable, private string user name. I create the generate getters and setters for this, and here again I have to column name, user name, user name. So like this, the Java developer will only once give these mapping. This is called object relational mapping. This is an object, the class, this is an object, and we are mapping it with a relational database. This is a mapping. You map this object to this column. You map this object to this table. You map this attribute to this column. You map this object to this table. So this is the object relational mapping which we give. And I said something about many to one and one to many. That also will come here. In the user table, we saw that user, and I have this one. We saw that the user and the address are one. You can see here 1 to infinite, which is many, 1 to infinite, which means in the user class, I will have a list of address. Okay. I don't have an address class. I have to create an address class like this, and then create a list of address class, and I have to go like at. We'll have many to one. Here we have many to many, many to any, many to one, one to many. There are lots of mappings available. One to many. So we have these mappings. We will see one example of these things in the coming classes. So these are the way a Java developer will give will provide the mapping of the table. So this will eliminate the knowledge of a database or the queries completely. So that is, and one more thing is, when we start a program, these can get connection, all these are there. This will be taken care by Hibernate. The Java developers need not take the pain of creating a connection, because I said that connections are costlier. You should not create connection again and again. So the connection will be created by the Hibernate or the ORM framework. When we tell about connection, I want to tell one more concept here. How Hibernate handles the connection. Imagine now we will take that ORM layer alone and then take a deep look into how it works. So consider this as a factory. Just typing this. Okay. Consider this as a factory. So factory is something where the products are manufactured and the products are continuously given out. We came across a factory terminology in our earlier classes for spring, where the spring used to maintain the objects in a factory which is called spring bean factory. The
Yeah,
same
Rajesh,
way,
just I heard about that before.
yes, the bean factory, that is what will be supplying all the beans to the Spring Boot application. The same way, Hibernate, we have a session factory.
That means all the defined classes, predefined classes, and everything is
Now,
stored in this.
session factory will store all the connections.
Okay.
This will take care of creation of connection, termination of connection, restart of connection, committing the transactions, rollback of transaction, exceptions, connection pooling. Connection pooling means when we start up, a particular set of connection will be taken. Like when we start up, there will not be only one connection. There will be like 10 to 20 connections. It is configurable. We can tell. So connection pooling, which is configurable. We usually go 20 connections. So every time a 20 connection to the database will be continuously there. Example, this will always be having, it's a 20 link. Like this. Like this continuously. Initially when it starts, 1 second. Okay, I cannot move. Okay, you understand this, right? So 20 connections will be kept when it starts. That is the factory, and you see here there is lots of inbuilt functionality which the developer need not even take it. So it is a tremendous advantage to use the ORM, but every advantage comes with a danger. We have to be cautious because if something is coming with lots of features and lots of things, there is definitely something danger behind it. Just a word of caution. We have to use it very effectively, though not just use it because we got it. I'll show you why. I'll show you how the Hibernate can become a total catastrophe when you use in a project, and it can become a total great thing where the project performance itself can be in both the extremes. If you know the concept and use it perfectly, you'll get a very great application. If you don't know it, then you'll end up blaming Hibernate that because of Hibernate the application is failing. Because of Hibernate, I am not getting the performance. But it is not because of the because of the Hibernate. It is because of lack of knowledge of the in-depth details of how Hibernate is working. That is what it is. Not only for Hibernate, for every technology, whatever you use, you should know the in-depth, and in-depth you can get only in the documentation. That's why repeatedly I tell again and again and again in all the classes, documentations are your Bible. You have to always know the place for documentation. For Hibernate, you have to go to documentation. Don't go to the tutorials. You can use the tutorials to read. Tutorials can cover only 10 to 15% of the regular flow which we are working. For your project, you might need something extraordinary which will be there in the documentation. So this is the latest development trend in Hibernate. 6 is being in development, 5.5 and 6. 5.4 is the stable version. So they have given a detailed documentation on how to start, example code, everything is there. You just need time to read it. These are the different modules. As we saw in Spring, that Spring AOP, Spring JDBC, Spring Data, and the Spring ORM, they were different modules. The same way in Hibernate, we have different modules. There is something OGM, which was launched like 3-4 years before. I just wanted to give some information on that. OGM, which is from Hibernate, which is the object graph mapping. Hibernate OGM, which is gaining popularity. Yeah, your NoSQL database store. I said when we started the database that there are two databases, two ways of having a database. One is the RDBMS, Relational Database Management System, and the other is non-RDBMS, which is a NoSQL. Without any SQL, we will store the data as JSON. So till so far, Hibernate was providing access only to the RDBMS, because ORM, Object Relational Database Mapping. So they started providing as a few years before, when Facebook started their, it was getting rolled out in a very long, like in a high speed way, and many were adapting. The NoSQL started becoming very popular. Even Google came out with Google Firebase. Then they not decommissioned. They brought in something as Firestore, which is all based on NoSQL. MongoDB is gaining very huge popularity. So Hibernate provides option to integrate to them also, which is a wonderful thing, because if you know what is yeah, there it is. They've given MongoDB. I didn't notice this because I've used Hibernate for MongoDB. Because NoSQLs are very tough to use. There is no query. There is no select query. You can't see the table. The data will be stored like this. If you see the data, I'll open Sublime. Okay, the data will be stored. Let us say the same T001 user object. Okay, the data will be stored like this. User ID 001. Address like this. Address ID 1. User OBJ. You will get confused if you see the data. How will you do a select query if you see a data like this? The data will be this is what the data is, and you have to do a select query. So it is not so easy. So Hibernate came into rescue that time, but nowadays not only Hibernate, the MongoDBs, they are coming up with their own way of querying the database. The MongoDB has a different structure. Just you should know these things. Okay, but why did I? Okay, so these, yeah, I was telling about the modules. These are the different Hibernate modules. We will be using core module in our class now, and these are the different module depending on. Yeah, J cache is something. EH cache is something interesting. This is like caching technique in database. How it works is, in the real world example, I'll tell you. Suppose there is a table. Let us say there is this user table itself. Okay, and user table, the users will be created like, let's say, like once in a week, or there are some condition where this table will not be populated so frequently. In this case, when the user is going to do a fetch of this table, select star from T001 user, and he is going to do a fetch of the select star from T001 user. It doesn't make sense to always hit the database, get the connection, and query the table, because the table data is going to change very rarely. In that case, it is better if we don't hit the table, but return the result from a cache. Cache are the temporary storage in the system, file system. That will make the query faster. That is what Hibernate cache means. If you enable a caching in Hibernate, you have to tell for which table or which query. For that query, the data will be stored in a cache, and when a user is going to retrieve, it will not go to database. It will return from the cache. And you can also provide a time, like every 10 seconds, no, every 10 seconds, 1 minute, or every 1 day, you refresh the cache. Meaning, after, if you give 1 day, after 1 day, the cache will be deleted, and the new data will be loaded in the cache. So these are few techniques to improve the performance. So you should know why these many modules are there, right? That is why I gave some. Yeah, C3P0 is a connection pooling. This is what Hibernate uses for connection, for maintaining the connection. I said, right, there are 10 connections which will be stored. The C3P0 module will be doing that. Okay, so coming back to the session factory. Session factory is the one which will, I said, you imagine like a factory. When the application starts, the factory is going to open up. First time the factory will be opening up. When the factory opens up, it is going to hit the database and get 10 or 20 or 40 or 50, whatever connection you have given. It will hold those many pipelines to the database. Those are the confirmed contracts with the database, so that the pipeline is fixed and you can send and receive data anytime through that pipeline. That is the fixed number. So the session factory creates a connection and keeps, those are called sessions. We call it as a session. So when we need to send out a statement, in our case, select star from 3001, from the session factory, we create a session. We either create a new session or we get the current session. We get a session. From the session, we send out the statement. Internally, the session will use the connection to send out. That is taken care internally by the Hibernate. So I said about session factory, connections creation. So when the application is closing, all actions will be properly released to the database. Otherwise, a deadlock will occur. And this will restart the connection. The session factory will automatically take care of continuously keeping in touch with the database and committing the transaction. Committing means final. It's a go ahead to the data. This is the final time you can confirm whether you want to definitely store the data, save the data to database or not. If you don't want, you can cancel the transaction without committing. Rollback is something by if you did a mistake, you can revert to the previous state. It is like Control Z, and it is going to do the exception handling, the connection pooling. So many more pieces are there. This will be handled by the connection factory. Now session factory. It's the same like the beam factory in the Spring. Okay. Now I'll take some time to go over this documentation. So whatever I said, they have given here. The Java class, how do we give it, the property mapping. So there are different ways of mapping. One is I showed here using annotation. The other is using XML. We can do it. That is the old way. Now many of them are not following the XML way. That is given in the documentation still. So they have given how to set up a Hibernate session factory. We'll go over this. We will start with this and then we will continue in the next class. So we'll see how to save, how to fetch. So there is a word you can see native Hibernate API. Native means which is specific to the database. That if you are using MySQL, the Hibernate is so smart that depending on whatever database you are using, it will generate the queries accordingly. That is a unique feature. That is why the Java developers need not know the query. Example, I'm working with MySQL today. The query in MS SQL there might be some small change to the query. Not 100% queries of MySQL will work in MS SQL. There is a small possibility of the query change. In that case, Hibernate will automatically change the query. Okay, Hibernate will automatically generate the query according to the database whichever we are hitting. So if it is going to be Oracle, Hibernate will generate the Oracle queries. Same for the so what are we call it as dialect. Okay, the annotation also is given here. Whatever I showed here, you can see that, and I'll show something as dialect. Yes. See here, the dialect property specifies the particular SQL variant with which the Hibernate will converse. The SQL variant, meaning MySQL, MS SQL, Oracle, Teradata, MongoDB, whatever it is, whatever SQL variant you are using, the Hibernate which is going to converse, the dialect will generate. In most cases, Hibernate is able to properly determine which dialect to use. This is particularly if useful if your application targets multiple database. That is where the Hibernate comes very handy, because we develop an application in MySQL. A lot of times we have in my project I have faced this. I worked in many of the migration projects. So what happens is, we initially built the application in Oracle 9i or 10g, and then there was a request where we migrated the application to Teradata, and recently we have migrated one application from MySQL to MS SQL to MySQL, because MS SQL is cost, and MySQL being a community edition, the customer wanted to migrate, so we did that with no change in code, 0% change in code. The migration was done because we were using Hibernate. Since we used Hibernate,
that means Rajesh, just you are creating one centralized mission, and then you are creating modules, and that particular modules you are going to install in the particular server, and then you are going to enable those ones. That's what you are telling, the migration part.
no, example, we have yeah, you got it partially correct. Example, we have a centralized two servers, assume. One is database server, one is the Java, the application which we developed so far, right? That is running, right? When I start the server, it will run in 8080.
Yes.
When I call the URL from the browser, it goes to the controller DAO. From there, we do a JDBC connection to the database server. I give the IP username password, correct? I give this.
Yes.
Yeah, you remember, right? So that is a separate machine. Now assume that is a MySQL machine today, correct?
Okay.
Assume tomorrow I am deciding to go away from MySQL and going to MS SQL, which is a different database from Microsoft MS SQL server. That case, the database machine I can replace. I'll replace with a new server. I'll copy this entire tables, columns, datas, all those I'll do migration. But if you think of these queries which I have written in the code, this update query, let's take the select query, left join. If I take this query, this is written for MySQL.
Oh, not for SQL.
Right? That might be small change in the query. The left join syntax might be changing in MS SQL slightly. So what will happen? Many of the queries will fail when I blindly just point to a different database. If I go here, I'll just change this URL. Instead of MySQL, I give MS SQL and the IP. The program will not work. Many of the methods might throw an error. Luckily, if these updates or these queries work in those things, most of the cases it will work. Okay, 95% of the queries will be global, because that is how everyone designed their database, Oracle or MS SQL or MySQL. But that 5% of the query will be unique to them, because to utilize their unique performance, we need to write some queries. We need to have some change in the queries to use their power efficiently. Okay, in that case, assume that this is one of that query. This will run in MySQL, but this will not run in MS SQL. It will throw error. What I have to do? I have to find out all those places and change the query.
Okay, that
Instead,
means whatever the thing we migrated from here to there, in that SQL also we have to change the queries, what the function here it is doing, right? The same
correct.
function we have to do, we have to write
Here
over
in
there.
Java you have to change the query. In this place you have to write one more method. This one you have to rename as MySQL, and you have to copy this method, paste, change the query here.
Okay.
So this is one of the disadvantages. But if you use Hibernate, you will not write this query. Okay, but you will tell to Hibernate that I want a left join, I want a right join. Hibernate is smart enough that if you are in MySQL connection, it will generate this query. If you are changing to MS SQL, it will immediately change the query, because it is programmed that way. So you need not, we literally, like 5 to 6 years of application, we literally just like that switched over to MS SQL without any change, because no queries were written in the program. We just changed the connection from MySQL to MS SQL. It worked immediately.
That means just we're going to change the modifications in the config file. That's what
Correct.
you're telling.
Exactly. This URL alone, if I change, or for
Okay.
example, I'm telling this will be placed differently in Hibernate config. But you are
Okay.
right. In the configuration file, I just changed the database name, password, and URL. This driver I have to change. This is a MySQL driver. I have to change this. All the methods, everything worked perfectly, because there was not a single query inside the application. If there are some queries in the application, even Hibernate cannot do anything. You have to manually migrate it. That's a one-off scenario.
Okay.
But this is one great advantage of using Hibernate. You can, that is what they have given here. Hibernate is automatically, in most cases, Hibernate is able to properly determine which dialect is the database which you are using. This is particularly useful if your application targets multiple database. Yeah, when they say multiple database, I worked in an application where I designed for 3 databases. Okay, 2 instance of MS SQL and 1 instance of MySQL. The same application, we will be having 3 connections. 2 for MS SQL, 1 for MySQL. And the same method, let's say this is a fetch, right? This is a fetch method. The same method should fetch data from MS SQL and also MySQL. I cannot write a query inside, because if I write it, there is a possibility that it can break in one and it can work in one. So we wrote a Hibernate query, and automatically there will be the way it works is, in the screen there will be a drop down where the user can select the first database, second, and third. When they select the first, they will get a result from the first database. When they select second, we will bring the same result from the second database, same data. When they select the third, it will fetch from a different database. So, but the same method, we cannot write 3 methods. It is not efficient. One I can write for MySQL 1, MySQL 2, and MS SQL. It is not efficient way. I have to use only one method. So in that case, this worked like a charm for us. This is particularly useful if your application targets multiple data. But again, just a caution: with so much flexibility comes equivalent danger. we have to be aware of what we are doing exactly. Otherwise, we'll end up in a big disaster. Because if something is giving so much of nice things, if it is so nice, then definitely it will have a different face. So we have to be aware of it. We have to be just cautious in using it, because the other side also we have faced, where one small word, there is something lazy. Okay, there is not, it is not here. It will come. Like there is a word as lazy equal to false. Okay, just this word lazy equal to false in a configuration.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
I
remember?
remember in the project, not
Correct.
this the lazy. There will be
Uh,
like we have to change the value from true to false,
ah,
and
if you give
yes,
true, which means you be lazy.
yeah,
Okay, you be lazy means what? I I'll give you everything at your place. You be lazy and you just sit. So if you give lazy true, it will fetch everything. So in this case, if I am going to fetch, if I am going to fetch user, where all it is going, the link, everything will be fetched. Even it will not even see if you are going to use the language. Oh, user is having a link with language, fetch it. It is having a link with the address, fetch it. It's having a link with payment, fetch it. If address is having a link with something else, fetch it. If that table is having a link, fetch it. Like that, if you see, if I fetch the user, 100 tables will be fetched. That is a big problem, right? I just want to fetch user, but because of one small terminology of true or false, the entire database will be fetched, and we will be wondering why the user fetch is taking like 5 minutes. There is nothing I'm doing. The user table is having only 3 records. Why is it taking so much of time? We will not know that this configuration was given wrongly by the developer because he didn't have a skill set. He didn't understand how Hibernate works. So that has to be kept in mind before we do this. And so these things we'll see how it is set up, so all these things. And before something else also.
that
Uh,
means Rajesh, Hibernate totally it will come under the layer in between the business and the database,
correct,
and which is
correct.
going to helpful for any migration projects or any most probably if you want to switch to any other database, this Hibernate is going to use.
Uh, yes. The first place Hibernate will be helpful is if you have multiple database in the
Okay.
system.
Mhm.
If your application is talking with 2 or 3 more than one database at the same time, one screen is fetching from one database, the other screen needs to fetch from some other database. Hibernate is the one you have to use. It will be so helpful. It will reduce. It will take care of lots of things so easily for you. That is the number. That should be number one for you. Secondly, if you are planning to migrate to a database, let's say today you are developing an application in one database. When you are developing itself, you don't know whether you might want to switch over to some other database in a year or two. You go to Hibernate. If you are not sure, when, because many of the times we just want to get the project live, so we'll go with one database quickly. But at that time itself, we'll be talking. Okay, if the project grows big, then we'll switch over to some other database. That time, go with the Hibernate. But if you are well planned and you know that okay, my database is going to be MS SQL for next 10-20 years, I'm not at all going to change. You can forget Hibernate. You can write your queries. Hibernate will
Okay.
work good there also, but uh, just a point to, if you want to ignore Hibernate, that is one scenario. But if you have multiple database, the perfect thing will be to use Hibernate.
Okay.
So you have the start guide, migration, user guide, integration, Java docs. So all these things are good, and there are lots of books also. Uh, but otherwise, I'll cover the mostly used things in the real world. So those examples I give. So whatever I am covering, I'm just coming from my experience. Uh, but if you want something else also, I can just cover it. Otherwise, that's all about the story of Hibernate, the introduction. So tomorrow we'll see in action this one. We'll see. I run this application. You see here the query. I ran this application. You see here select. Okay, when the application is starting, it is starting Hibernate annotation. It is automatically, see here, it is connecting to the driver manager connection. Whatever we did manually, it is connecting to this database and using this URL to this username and password. And it is using the dialect. You can see here connection pool. I said right 20. It is taking 20. Minimum is 1. See here. So 20 connections are available for me. And dialect MySQL 8 dialect automatically it is recognizing based on the connection. This connection, right? When it is connecting to this MySQL, it is automatically recognizing that it is MySQL 8 dialect. Let me see if I have given this dialect somewhere. I remember commenting out the dialect. I gave only the driver, the URL, username, password. I commented the dialect because initially I had 5 dialect. I didn't want to use it. Show SQL true I have given. So it is printing the query. You see here this query which Hibernate has printed for me. And see what we wrote. We wrote select star from user. The same query I am generating. See here, select from user and alias. This underscore, that's the alias it has kept, and it is fetching user ID as a name, an alias name. This is what Hibernate gives me. The same query. Just notice the difference in heading. It will be user ID 00. Okay, it's taking time. And once we get the result, it's all up to us. That is again advanced Java and core Java. I got all the results. So we will see step by step from tomorrow on how to configure this. This is a beautiful part. The queries will be auto generated. You need not even know the query. We'll do lots of query here. We'll write the criteria. We'll do joins and what else? Yeah, criteria itself we have a lot. We have a like, we have a match mode, like starting, I mean like at the starting, percentage at the end. We have lots of combinations. Let's roughly go over the commonly used in the Hibernate. Tomorrow we'll go over this. All right.
Rajesh, I'm good with that. I have one question, but it's
Yes,
related to
please.
Java only.
Yes,
Uh,
please.
in my current project, 2 days before we had like one P2, they are telling about deadlocks in Java.
Yeah,
Not in Java,
deadlocks.
just I
DB.
heard.
Deadlocks are in database. Deadlocks are something when it can happen in multiple scenarios. One is when the same row, let us say we have this, you have this table and you have this row Sunday. The ID is 1 and here it is 1. When two processes are trying to access the same row, two processes are trying to update the same row at this, let's say you have hit an update query to update this as Sunday 1. I have given an update query to update as Sunday 2. At the same time, two threads will be trying to hit it and a deadlock will happen.
Okay.
So when the database is getting accessed by multiple threads, not only database, a particular table, specifically a particular row. Let us say there is a bulk update query running and there is one more bulk update query given by someone else. Then there will be a deadlock. So usually we have to be careful in executing queries. And let us say a long time running query is there, like without any, uh, uh, let's say there is a select query issued, it has not given me result. Immediately I'm giving one more update now, and it is not done. Again, I'm doing a select. That time deadlock will happen. Actually, why deadlock happens? The indexes are not set. The records are not processed fastly, so that the other queries are waiting. Every query, whenever it reaches a database, it has to execute within a second and go back. It can be update, select, or something else. If something is not, if the database is not designed properly, or like the coding is not done properly, like multiple threads are hitting at the same time, the deadlocks will happen in the database. We have to restart the database in that case.
For that, what's the solution? That means, for example, one database is used by two different teams. They want to execute one query one at a time. They don't know what they don't know each other. They are executing the same query. And for that, is there a solution, or just we have to restart the
Uh,
SQL server? Or and what's the
uh,
solution? What's the solutions we have for that?
Usually when like teams share the database, mainly the deadlock will happen with the store procedures, because that is where we, the normal queries are faster to run and they'll run quickly and go back. Store procedures, usually, let's say we have like 1,000 rows, we have to run in a loop and do some operation. When the first team issues it, the store procedure will be running. Within that, again the next team will might hit a update query, all those things. That time the lock will happen. Usually it is just communication only. We communicate and then we work on it.
Okay.
This will not happen in live. This will happen only in case of support. This might happen in live if more than one person are accessing. Mostly this will happen in the dev and staging.
Okay. In production, we won't keep, right? But
Because
uh-huh.
production access will not be given to multiple persons. It is sensitive.
Sensitive.
So
Okay.
production, there is very least possibility of a deadlock. If production there is a deadlock, then there is a big loop in the code.
Okay. Gotcha. I'm
Otherwise,
good,
the
Rajesh.
local dev, yeah, local dev locks are very common. It happens because it is a dev server. Multiple people will be accessing at the same time. We issue the SPs. Everything is done at the same time. So it is common. So we usually speak in the chat and then we start. We ask like whether you have started any big store procedure, and that too, this will come only for data warehousing teams. For normal teams, there will not be that such a huge space to run. It will be like minor records which will run within 1 or 2 seconds. So even some other query is coming when two teams are issuing a same thing. One will finish in few seconds and the other will take over. Only when it is crossing some time, the deadlock will happen and it will not be able to finish.
Okay.
Okay, good. Okay then. So we'll meet tomorrow, same time. We'll start with the configuration, the hands-on part of the Hibernate. Okay.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks all. Bye.